Hey everybody, welcome in. This is the first episode of Local Histories, and I am your host, Alpha. For anyone who listens to my other show, Stories from Behind the Counter, thank you for coming over and checking this out. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you like it. If you can tell already, I'm not going to be as high energy from the get-go. We're not talking about craziness as much. We're just talking about historical facts in this one, so I'm not going to have the crazy energy I do in that one sometimes. But at the same time, I'm not trying to sound like the Clear Eyes guy. If you know, you know. But with that being said, welcome into the first episode. Today we're going to be talking about Olive Oatman. The story of Olive Oatman is mostly known to those who have lived in Arizona for a long time, specifically Mojave County, where the gold rush town Oatman, Arizona, was established in order to honor her. There have been many books written about her and the things that she went through in her youth, as well as TV shows and other stories that are loosely based on the story of her life. Before we get into this, I do also want to have a disclaimer. Again, I am not a historian. I do not have any degrees of any sort besides a high school diploma. I'm just a nerd who likes to go down rabbit holes, and I like finding out the history of places that I visit or travel to, places that are around where I live, things that you don't hear an awful lot. So that's why I'm doing this. Disclaimer number 2. If you go and read certain books and old newspapers, historians have figured out that there were some, shall we say, inaccuracies, and some things that are believed to be straight out lies. We will get into those later, so without further ado, let's get into the episode. Olive Oatman was born on September 7th, 1837, in La Harpe, Illinois. She was the third of 7 children, to Royce and Mary Ann Oatman. The Oatman family converted to Mormonism in 1839, and in 1844, when the Mormon founding leader Joseph Smith was killed, the Oatman family chose to affiliate with the Brewsterites, a splinter group from the Mormons that was officially founded by James Brewster in 1848. By 1850, the Brewsterites and the Oatman family decided to move west. Partway through the journey, there was a falling out between Brewster and the Oatman family that resulted in the Oatman family, and a few other families, to decide to take a different route. By the time they got to Maricopa Wells, which is about 20 miles away from modern-day Phoenix, the Oatman family decided to continue north, even though they were already warned that it's dangerous, and this time the Oatman family would be traveling alone. In somewhere between February or March of 1851, the Oatman family found out that ignoring all the warnings and traveling alone were bad ideas. When the family got to the Gila River, which is by modern-day Yuma, they encountered a party of Native Americans that Olive later identified as Tonto Apache, but they are now actually believed to have been from the Yavapai tribe. When the party asked the Oatman family for tobacco and food, there was a misunderstanding, and the party had massacred everyone except for Olive, who was 14 at the time, her brother Lorenzo, who was 15, and 7-year-old Mary Ann, named after their mother, who was pregnant with her 8th child at the time. Mary Ann and Olive watched everyone be massacred and watched as Lorenzo was left to die, and they were taken into slavery. Lorenzo did still survive and managed to get back to town and heal. Then, 3 days later, came back to gather and bury the bodies of his family that had been killed. The news article reported that Lorenzo said, "We buried the bodies of father and mother and babe in one common grave." The men had no way of digging proper graves in the volcanic, rocky soil, so they gathered the bodies and they formed a bit of a tomb over them just by piling rocks over the bodies. It has been said that the remains were reburied several times and finally moved to the river for reinterment by early Arizona colonizer Charles Poston. How much of that is true, I cannot verify, though. Nobody knows an exact burial site for the initial family members that were killed. Lorenzo became determined to never give up the search for his other only surviving siblings. Olive and Marianne were held in captivity with the Yavapai tribe and treated very poorly for around a year. Olive reported later that she thought they would be killed, but they were used as slaves to forage for food, lug water, firewood, amongst other very menial tasks. While they were being held captive, a tribe known as the Mojave tribe came along to trade with the Yavapai. The daughter of the chief of the Mojaves, named Topeka, saw the girls and their poor treatment and tried to trade for them, but the Yavapai refused at first. But Topeka refused to give up. Topeka returned later, and eventually the Yavapai gave in and accepted the offer of 2 horses, some vegetables, blankets, and beads. Once the Yavapai agreed to this exchange, the Mojave tribe took the girls into their own village along the Colorado River, what is now known as Needles, California. The wife and daughter of the chief took very great interest in the girls' welfare, and they took very good care of them from then on. The girls were given plots of land to farm, Mojave nicknames, and allowing them to become tattooed as well, showing that they were fully adopted in the community and the tribe. And this is one of the parts that we're going to have to point out. This is where we need to correct something where if you look at certain literature, it says one thing and we now know another. Although much later in life, a book Olive promoted with Reverend Royal Brian Stratton about her life claimed that the tattoos were a mark of slavery. But we now know that the Mojave did not allow slaves to be tattooed like they were. From my research, I've heard a few different things saying that the tattoos are for recognition by the Mojave tribesmen in the afterlife, as well as the theory of Mojave women would get these tattoos around the time of puberty to show that they are ready to get married. Some reports say that the tattoos are even a mark of already being someone's wife. I personally have not been able to reach out to anyone at the Mojave tribe to clarify this, so please, if anyone is listening, I would love to get some clarification. Either way, the claim that the tattoos were meant specifically for slavery, 100% wrong. There is a claim that Olive has denied any possibility of later on in life that she had possibly married and had relationships with anyone in either tribe. But for lack of a better term, because of such little record of anything, and in the eyes of the time, so much scandal was involved, there are conspiracy theories out there involving Olive Oatman and possibly leaving behind a husband and 2 sons. But nothing can be confirmed from what I found. There's a lot of stuff in this book that, quote, Olive said, that contradicts things said before she wrote this book with this Reverend guy. It's believed that he made her sensationalize a lot of her story and embellish a lot of stuff. Things like saying her and her sister feared to leave the Mojave tribe when the Mojave tribe was perfectly fine with them leaving. They just didn't want to come into a white person's territory and get in trouble for having possession of white women. Also claims saying that the tribe hid the girls when white people came around to trade, when that didn't happen. There are a lot of things in this book that you have to take with a grain of salt. Despite all of these claims, Olive was heard multiple times praising and speaking fondly of the Mojave tribe, specifically Topeka and her mother, who saved Olive's life during a super bad drought, which caused a lack of food and supplies and ultimately killed her little sister Marianne. The tribe wanted to burn Marianne's body per their traditions, but Topeka's mother took Olive's side and talked the chief into letting Olive bury and take care of Marianne's body the way she was accustomed. When Olive was 19, rumors of a white girl living with the Native American tribes started floating around and demands were made that Olive be, quote, given back. The Mojave tribe at first resisted and tried to hide Olive, supposedly, but eventually Olive and the tribe decided it was best if she left and went back to live with the white people. Many reports show that even though there was a giant roar of applause and cheers when Olive showed up at Fort Yuma, she was not happy when she rejoined white society. Oatman's childhood friend, Susan Thompson, someone she befriended at this time, stated that she believed Oatman was, quote, grieving upon her forced return because she had been married to a Mojave man, possibly the chief's son, and given birth to 2 boys. Like I said, none of that could ever be substantiated. Sadly, Susan Thompson is not exactly a great source as it is, as she was caught lying regularly, so we need to take what she says with a grain of salt. Again, Olive publicly denied this until her dying day, but as she was more than willing to lie for some time about certain things that we now know to be true, such as the tattoos absolutely not being meant for slaves, we also need to take what Olive said with a bit of skepticism. She did deny this up until her dying day. She stayed very firm, saying that she never willingly had sexual interactions with anyone in the Mojave tribe, nor was she even sexually mistreated by either the Yavapai, much less the Mojave. But again, did she just say that up until her dying day because she didn't want to deal with the outcome of the judgment from society at the time, or was it actually true? We will never truly know, sadly. I would like to think that if she was that steadfast on saying nothing ever happened, that was not the case. I would like to believe that one. Anywho, just a few days after arriving at Fort Yuma, Olive discovered that Lorenzo was still alive and was looking for her and Mary Ann. When they finally got to reunite, it made headlines across the West. In 1857, Reverend Stratton tracked down Lorenzo and Olive and talked them into co-writing this book about their entire ordeal. Sadly, like I said, it is believed at this point he forced both of the Oatmans to embellish and lie about certain things, but how far that extends is highly unclear. Regardless, the book sold 30,000 copies at the time, and it was considered a bestseller of the era. The 2 remaining Oatmans followed Stratton across the country promoting the book with lectures. Olive was a curiosity for the time, which essentially just turned her into a one-person freak show. In much later years, Olive was also able to meet with a Mojave leader in New York. She spoke with him in the Mojave language and clasped hands as old friends and tribe members, speaking of old times, reminiscing of fond memories. I know, there's a lot of conflicting information here, and it's hard to track down the full truth of the matter on certain things. This is just literally everything I can find, and I'm trying to put it together as cohesively as possible. Bear with me. On November 9th, 1865, Olive married John Brant Fairchild in Rochester, New York. They had met at one of her lectures. They began talking when Fairchild revealed that he had lost some family members in 1854 in Arizona due to an attack from Native Americans, around the same time Olive was living with the Mojave. At this time, Fairchild was a wealthy rancher and they got along very well. Apparently, Fairchild did not get along with Stratton, and Olive broke all communications with him after they got together, refusing to send him an invitation to their wedding, or even talking to him thereafter. Stratton became institutionalized after the development of hereditary insanity and died in 1875. Olive and John Fairchild eventually moved to Sherman, Texas together. John Fairchild founded the City Bank of Sherman, and together they lived quietly in a Victorian mansion. Olive started wearing a veil to cover her tattoo and started getting heavily involved into charities, especially those for the local orphanage. Olive and John never had their own children, but they did adopt a girl and named her Mary Elizabeth, but nicknamed her Mammy. John Fairchild went on to find every copy he could of Stratton's book, and he burned all of them. Lorenzo died October 8, 1901. Olive followed 2 years later, dying of a heart attack March 20th, 1903, at the age of 65. John Fairchild died April 25th, 1907. John and Olive are buried together at West Hill Cemetery in Sherman, Texas. And there are a few places you can go in Arizona that have signs either recognizing the site of the massacre of the Oatman family, a couple of different places that claim this is where the family was buried, or at least have a memorial site for them. So if you'd like, check them out. The life of Olive Oatman has spurred the creation of movies, books, documentaries, and much more, including podcasts. The town of Oatman, Arizona, that was a small gold rush town, is named after Olive Oatman and is actually located very close to her release site where she was given back to the whites, demanding her return. It is now a tourist stop along Route 66 at the top of a mountain road after their famous Sidewinder Road. I have personally been there a few times, and I highly suggest you, unless you get motion sick, try going up the Sidewinder Road. Very twisty, turny road. Please be careful. It is on the side of a mountain. Lots of people have crashed thinking they're able to take it at high speeds. Just don't do it. Go have a nice leisurely drive. On the way up to Oatman, you can see the goldfish pond on the side of the mountain. And then when you get up there, if you get there, I believe, midday, that's where they have the simulated gun battles. I highly suggest you check it out. Sadly, Oatman, Arizona is the only town that still holds Olive's namesake that was founded around her time period. All of the other places, such as Olive City and Oatman Flats Station, are no longer around. You can still find their coordinates on Google if you'd like to try and hunt them down. These historical sites are intriguing, to say the least, but nothing is left standing in either place. There is still a mountain outside of Gila Bend, Arizona, in Maricopa County, named Oatman Mountain. It's a 1,722-foot volcanic peak that is known for hiking, scenic desert views, ridge soaring, and thermal activity. You can also visit the Oatman Massacre site and the Oatman Family Memorial site, all in Arizona. And of course, Olive Oatman's grave site in Texas. With that being said, that is the story of Olive Oatman. That's everything that I could find and verify to the best of my abilities. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and tune in next time for another light dive into little-known figures and events in history from local little places. Again, I am by no means a historian. I have no degrees other than a high school diploma. I'm just a history nerd that loves finding new things that aren't always talked about. So, if you have any suggestions for me on what to cover next, please leave a comment or send me a message through Facebook or just email me at workwithalphag@gmail.com. That is workwithalphag@gmail.com. A list of my resources that I used will be in the show notes and the credits, but I did also want to point them out here. Much to many people's dismay, yes, I did have to use Wikipedia, as there is not a whole lot of information on Olive Oatman in general. Sadly, resources are rather scarce sometimes, and even when you do find multiple sources, it all leads back to one main source, so I did what I could. The Olive Oatman Wikipedia page is the biggest main source that I had, but I was able to back it up with a few YouTube videos. There's Mystery Scoop, Olive Oatman 1857, History Revealed and Brought to Life. There's Messed Up History, Unraveling Olive Oatman's Intriguing History. And then thirdly, True West Magazine, Olive Oatman, A Life of Double Tragedy, although I tried to focus on what was known fact for that specific video. He tends to go into the conspiracy theories a lot more, such as her having kids and a husband and all of that. I tried to stick to fact. There is also one more video, says Histories and Native Tales, Slave or Daughter, The Secret Life of Olive Oatman. And then oldwest.org, Olive Oatman, Tattooed Captive of the Frontier. Lastly, the Oatman Massacre at azoffroad.net. Again, all of these will be in the show notes, So if you'd like to go and vet them yourself, take a look at the resources that I used, feel free. Please, if anyone out there has any good corrections for me that you can substantiate, especially if there's anyone in the Mojave tribe or anyone that knows this story a little more intimately that would be able to clarify certain things that most people don't know, that would be wonderful. Go ahead and get with me, like I said, either through my email or through Facebook, and I even forgot, get with me on Patreon. Y'all, for $1 a month, you can get 24-hour early access anytime I post a show or anything else, as well as being completely ad-free. Only ads you might hear is if I get any sponsors or anything else like that to help. Other than that, you won't be getting interrupted in the middle of the show for an ad every couple of minutes. Not to mention, on Patreon, you will be able to see pictures of things that I post pertaining to each episode. So in this case, I will be able to post some pictures of specific people I mentioned, like the Oatman family themselves, whatever pictures I can find. Olive Oatman herself, a couple of color, a couple black and white pictures. Some really awesome stuff. So you will get some extra content through Patreon, specifically just because I'm not doing any videos yet for the podcast. It's funner when you get to have those visuals. So come check me out. $1 a month, you get some extra stuff. And Patreon is really awesome because that $1 a month, or whichever tier you go with, because there are higher tiers, I'm planning on being able to do more with all of the people that sign up on Patreon. The higher tier you are, the more perks you should get. But not only that, when you go with Patreon, that does directly go to me. So it's not just me getting pennies from 100 or 700 listens through other places. When you sign up for Patreon, I get the bulk of that. So that's supporting me directly, and I can go do this full time if I get more people on there. And if I am able to do this full time, then guess what? You get even better stuff on Patreon. That being said, I hope everybody enjoys. Come check me out. All the links for everything will be down in the show notes one last time. Thanks again, guys. See you next time. Stay fabulous, everybody.